Shalom YouTube, you're listening to The Financially Savvy Chick. I am Tamar. In today's video, I want to talk about how inflation is not under control, it's actually out of control. Inflation is going down and they want you to celebrate. Don't pay attention to the headlines if you see it on social media or hear it over the news. We knew that when the Federal Reserve began aggressively hiking interest rates that it would have an impact on inflation. High rates have caused a new housing crash that also crushed the tech industry. And they've also sparked the biggest wave of layoffs since the Great Depression. I wouldn't necessarily agree with that. I wouldn't say we ever had a Great Recession. We've had a Great Depression, and we're heading to a second Great Depression. I want you to remember this. Every time the Fed hikes interest rates, that means they're removing money from the economy. And when you do that, you have job layoffs and inflation goes even more out of control. We've entered a significant economic downturn, so it's inevitable that the annual rate of interest will start to moderate. And I'll explain what this means, how inflation is not under control. The real rate of inflation is much higher than you're being told, and people all over the country are being crushed by the rising cost of living. Consumer price increased 6.5% from a year earlier, down from 7.1% in November, on a 40-year high of 9.1% in June, according to the Labor Department Consumer Price Index, which measures what people pay for goods and services. The rise last month marks the slowest annual gain since October of 2021. Still, inflation remains about 3 times higher than the pre-pandemic average, underscoring the persistent financial burden placed on millions of U.S. households by high prices. So we're still definitely in a high inflation environment. When they use the term high inflation, I have to agree and I have to speak on this, okay? I believe we're in hyperinflation. I've seen prices rise above 300% in stores, okay? I'm not going to even do this video and sugarcoat it. We're going to dig a little deeper here. Most Americans don't realize that the way the inflation rate is calculated has literally been changed more than 24 times since 1980, and this is because they don't want you to keep up. Every time it's been changed, the goal has been to make inflation appear to be lower than what it actually is. If the rate of inflation was still calculated the way that it's back in 1980, the real rate of inflation will be close to 15% right now. And again, this is an understatement, because Congress gave themselves a 21% pay increase, I believe, a year ago. Don't quote me on that. It may have been 2. But if you're getting 21% pay increase, why are you projecting that it's inflation's 10% or 7% or 15% when you gave yourself a 21%? Again, their pay of increase is based on the cost of living, or pretty much. So you're not being truthful, okay? If the rate of inflation was still calculated the way that it was back in the 80s, it would be over 100%. And that's comparable to the peak inflation that we witnessed during the Carter era. So don't let anyone try to convince you that inflation is under control or that it's low. I did notice the weather has been a little bit warmer now. Yudhe Wahe has been sparing us, and I'm grateful. So this could be the reason why you're seeing a decrease in some prices because of energy. You know what I'm saying? When it's freezing, it seems like the energy companies want to triple, quadruple the prices that you're paying just to heat your home, which is criminal. It's criminal. That's my opinion. Americans saw real reprieve last month in the form of a lower energy cost, which fell 6.1%. Gas prices dropped 12.5% over the month, and the biggest contributor to the overall headline in December was inflation. Now, it's great news, but it's already being projected that gas prices will rise significantly in 2023, which we already are in. It's funny how they lower the prices around their pagan holidays, and then when those days pass, they jack the gas prices back up. I mean, one day gas was like $2.97. Went back the next day it was $3.19. How do you justify that? No, I mean they are insulting our intelligence. Meanwhile, services inflation has just spiked to a level that we haven't seen in decades. The cost of living has become extremely oppressive, and the American people are becoming increasingly frustrated by this. I'd like to share with you where you're going to have to make sacrifices in order to get ahead. I'm not going to try to convince you that inflation is under control. And I also advise you not to allow anyone to convince you that it's under control, because it's a lie. Sadly, the truth is, over the past few years, the cost of living has been rising faster than our paychecks. And you, as families, have steadily been getting poorer. The average citizen has lost the equivalent of more than a month's salary in annual income since Biden took office. High inflation and rising interest rates eat away at your finances, according to research by the Heritage Foundation. Prior to the pandemic, we were in a low inflation and low interest rate environment. And no, I'm not saying I want a previous specific person to come back, because it don't make a difference, because I honestly feel like this is all set out and planned, so it don't matter who you have in office, Republican or Democrat. While the elected representatives in D.C. struggle to pay the nation's bills, Americans are facing a similar challenge at their household budgets and stretched thin due to inflation and higher borrowing costs. Those financial challenges are leading more than a third of households to rely on credit card or loans to buy necessities. Average credit card interest rates reach a new record high of 19.14% compared to the Bankrate.com database. Americans are increasingly relying on credit cards to make it from paycheck to paycheck, resulting in higher levels of indebtedness. It's really unfortunate. Well, you know what? The country is heading where it's heading because of choices that were made and because of decisions that were made. And you reap what you sow. If you dish out evil, you're going to receive evil. If you dish out good, you're going to receive good. We have to pay more to buy things that we need, and we have to pay higher interest rates when we need to borrow money to pay for those things. The Federal Reserve has lost control. It is official. And we are careening toward a sort of historic economic crisis. And I'm sure you all know that the warning signs have been out there for years. So if you're not paying attention, I don't know what to tell you. But for those that are under the spell of corporate media and will continue to assume everything is fine and that our leaders, so-called leaders, have a plan to get the country out of this mess, I wish you the best. Unfortunately, the short-term economic outlook is extremely dismal, and prominent voices all over Wall Street are warning that 2023 is going to be a rough year. Well, here's my advice. Get out of debt. Pay down your credit cards. Stop using them. Pay cash when you go to the store. Don't take out any loans. Learn to do things yourself. There is YouTube. You can learn to build a house. You can learn to build a wood cook stove so you can rely on zero electricity. Consider investing your fiat while it's still good into tangible assets. I'm not a financial advisor, so I'm not giving you financial advice, but I'm telling you, you probably want to look into what's considered tangible assets and start looking into it and actually doing something. Well, as always, keep Yahweh first. Like I said, get out of debt. And until next time, shalom. I hope you found this video helpful. Hit the thumbs up. This will help the YouTube algorithm allow others to hear and see it. Don't forget to visit our website, thefinanciallysavvychick.com, and check out our blogs. Shalom.